While the U.S. continues to pursue an aggressive trade policy, Canada appears to have found an unexpected ally in China. Beijing is offering Ottawa an alternative market at a time when the White House is waging trade wars not only with China, but also with its traditional partners. The introduction of 20% tariffs on Chinese goods by the Trump administration has provoked a serious aggravation of already tense trade relations. The goal was obvious. Beijing was to make economic concessions. However, the Chinese side quickly took retaliatory measures by reducing American imports in many sectors and strengthening trade ties with alternative partners, including Canada and the European Union. For American businesses, the consequences have been extremely negative. Farmers, producers, and energy suppliers in the U.S. immediately felt the blow by losing access to the large Chinese market. As a result, prices are falling, uncertainty is growing, and competitors are quickly filling the vacuum. The situation in the technology sector is especially indicative. Giants such as Apple, Intel, and QOS are heavily dependent on the Chinese market. Apple produces most of the iPhones in China and sells about 16% of its products there. QOS gets almost half of its revenue from China. The Chinese automobile industry is also deeply integrated with the Chinese market. China sells more cars than the U.S., 358 million cars per year. Ford is in a similar situation. The new tariffs threaten not only to increase import prices, but also to lose a customer base and billions in sales. Even brands such as Nike and Starbucks have built their strategies with the Chinese market in mind. Nike alone earned $7 billion there in a year, an amount that cannot simply be abandoned. Although the tariffs were intended as a tool to put pressure on China, in practice, they are causing serious damage to American businesses, forcing them to seek new paths of development or suffer losses. Recently, the economic situation in the U.S. has become tense due to trade policies toward China. The introduction of tariffs on Chinese goods has created a complex economic domino effect that is hitting American businesses and consumers. U.S. companies are faced with a choice: reduce profits by absorbing additional costs, or raise prices for consumers. This has especially affected the cost of steel and aluminum, leading to higher construction costs and issues for automakers, where most components are produced abroad. China has responded by reducing imports of American goods and strengthening ties with Canada and the European Union. This has hit American farmers focused on the Chinese market, causing overproduction and falling prices. The U.S. manufacturing sector is suffering from a reduction in Chinese purchases. The energy sector is struggling due to falling demand for oil and gas. It will take years and huge investments to restore production in the U.S. Many industries left the country decades ago, and recreating production chains is a complex process. The current situation shows that more thoughtful strategies are needed rather than just tariff restrictions. In the context of growing economic confrontation, the U.S. is facing the consequences of its tariff policy. Strategic flexibility strengthens relations with alternative partners in the international market. WART, caught between a rock and a hard place, is trying to keep prices affordable for consumers by putting pressure on Chinese suppliers. These actions have attracted the attention of Beijing, which led to the company's representatives being summoned for negotiations. China is actively developing relations with European partners, positioning itself as a reliable ally in finding leaders tired of Washington's unpredictable policies. In the energy sector, the U.S. is losing its position as a key supplier of oil and LNG to China due to trade restrictions. Against this background, the strategic rapprochement between Canada and China is taking on special significance. The introduction of a 10% oil tariff has backfired. Canada has pivoted towards the Chinese market. The pipeline expansion allows the country to significantly increase its export capacity. The project allows Canada to supply oil directly to China, bypassing the American market. The increase in pipeline capacity strengthens the partnership between Thailand and Beijing, changing the balance of power in the global energy market. The U.S. Federal Reserve faces a difficult choice. It is necessary to control inflation and prevent an economic downturn. A strategy aimed at strengthening the dominant position of the United States has led to the opposite result. America is displacing itself from key markets. U.S. attempts to weaken China have only helped Beijing expand its circle of allies and strengthen its international position. New alliances and trade routes are being formed without taking American interests into account, which could have long-term consequences for the global economy. A large-scale restructuring of trade relations is taking place in the world. Canada is successfully competing in the LNG market. The Canadian LNG project in British Columbia, scheduled to launch in 2025, will be a real breakthrough with an impressive capacity of 14 million tons per year. China, seeking to diversify its energy sources, is actively developing cooperation with ARC Resources. It has already signed a significant contract with Canada to supply 1.5 million tons of LNG per year to Exxon-M's Asia-Pacific division. The agreement demonstrates the seriousness of both sides' intentions amid growing trade tensions with the U.S. Canada is considering imposing restrictions on oil exports to the U.S. or imposing export duties. Such measures could significantly affect U.S. refineries dependent on Canadian crude. In parallel with energy changes, the U.S. agricultural sector is experiencing a serious crisis. It is especially difficult for farmers growing soybeans, wheat, and corn. If in 2016 the U.S. provided 40% of China's soybean imports, now this share has fallen to 18%. Brazil and Argentina have filled the vacant niche, now providing 74% of China's soybean needs. American farmers are faced with serious problems of overproduction and decline. Many farms are on the verge of bankruptcy. The crisis affects not only producers, but also the entire agro-industrial chain, including processing plants and logistics companies. The new configuration of global energy and trade alliances is calling into question the future of American dominance in global markets. China is successfully strengthening its energy security by building partnerships with alternative suppliers, which significantly reduces U.S. influence in the global energy market. In today's issue, we will look at the serious crisis that has engulfed the American agricultural sector amid the trade war with China. The situation is so critical that the U.S. government was forced to take unprecedented measures. The U.S. Department of Agriculture allocated a colossal sum of $12 billion in emergency aid to affected farmers. Soybean producers, who found themselves hit the hardest, received the lion's share of this aid, $8 billion in compensation. But the financial injections do not solve the main problem. China, in response to American sanctions, dealt a powerful blow to the U.S. agricultural sector. Beijing has sharply increased imports of European pork. Supplies from the EU have grown by an impressive 35%. American producers are rapidly losing their positions in the Chinese market. China's tariffs have affected almost the entire spectrum of U.S. agricultural products, making American goods uncompetitive in the global market. Transport companies and agricultural machinery manufacturers are suffering huge losses. China is methodically strengthening its economic independence by reducing dependence on American imports. Moreover, Beijing is strengthening its position in international trade negotiations. If Washington does not reconsider its current strategy, it risks being left on the sidelines of global supplies. The stakes in this confrontation are higher than ever. There is a real threat that the era of U.S. dominance in world trade may come to an end. However, this story is far from over, and we will continue to closely follow the developments. Subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all the important events in this exciting struggle for economic dominance. Don't forget to like and share this video with your friends. See you in the next issue. Thank you for your attention.